Just out here. Figured to make a quick video because I'm really thinking of, you know, my mother said something that she was going to be asleep, for like an hour, and she knows I was resuscitated. And I know that there's people over here that are talking shit, protecting Michael. Michael resuscitated me, and all that court. That is such, that is such a sensitive thing to do. This is how the poison works for the white superiors and every single one of these people that are doing this, because they want to make sure who's going to win. And I try to really not think about that, but it is something that's being kind of slightly brought up, and I can hear my mother's voice. She said she was going to be asleep for like an hour. And, you know, you get put to something like that, it's not to even just think of your own mortality, but something maybe your son could have gone through and it would have been dead. And everything I'd ever went through my transplant, it's all garbage. It went to the president, to the psychologist, and now to these individuals that are now fighting for Michael and fighting for the gay community. And they stripped everything. Because I know the procedures for these queers that are just running around for Michael. And so they do this. But I have to pay for it through my mother, and I feel guilty about it too. I feel very guilty. But they harness and they take, you know. I know at Walmart they're going to have their white superiors. They're going to have the Mexicans attack me because he's married to a Mexican. Patricia Gardina and all this other shit. It's very unfair on me, and I think it's very unfair on my mother. But I hope, give some blessings, and hope things go really great and smooth. So it's very difficult when you have this happen, because it personally, it makes me feel really guilt. It makes me feel bad, because it was such a horrible accident. Here I am in a situation where they pull this shit on me everywhere. This is nonstop. They know about it and they bring it up. I'm going to court. I got court in next week. I got to talk to my lawyer and all this other shit. The judge starts threatening me and saying this shit. They know what's going on. They start putting these death tables and shit. It wasn't here before. They start putting that jail thing. It's very frustrating. So hopefully things go great and smooth and comforting and relaxing. But I know that they're doing this, the antagonizing, going from place to place, dropping shit. It's like, fuck your mother. This is for Classic Soul. Who's a DJ? Who's really a hero here? And, this is not a cakewalk. I know they got the white superiors at Walmart. I know they got them all lined up, and they don't let me have a girlfriend or nothing. This isn't about me, but it's about putting me down. But I don't know. I just hope things are smooth and comforting. So that's all I can. It's supposed to be a normal procedure. Sounds painful to move a bone and a tendon, because I have a bad knee too, and I've had injuries before where it's crippled me, and it's the worst. But like I said, Jillian and Frankie ain't calling me. It ain't looking good on me either. So, you know. The idea that my mother, they're laughing, and the idea that because this is a practice. Just like they practice everything, taking me down the hall, pretending I'm getting raped again by Patricia, brainwashing me, conditioning me, they making me shit it out and piss it out, and then we're gonna build you a house, or we're gonna beat your ass, and all this is mental adjustments they're doing. Well, they're gonna be doing this to my mother, because the day that I, possibly in 10 years, this is a new start, to say, the day that Hector becomes sedated and he starts dying of cancer, they'll start exercising methods on my mother to get rid of me and to extinguish my life like that. And they walk very comfortable, very, very comfortable. So, you know, it's to say the least of things, you know, of this is the practice of mortality. You know, you start going to sleep and you start getting ready for the situation like I was when I was in a hospital. Because I'm much older now, and so is my mother. You get closer to these tragedies in life. You get closer to these things and death and whatnot. And it's very frightening. But it's the reality. But you know, it makes me feel because I'm trying not to be analytical about it, but thinking to my mother that it probably does this. It probably does this so that, you know, she's going to have these thoughts. She already has her family and everything, but, you know, she has one son that goes through cancer. And here, you know, this help practice so that it's easier and it's it doesn't feel very great, you know. Besides the surgery itself, you know, all of that, you know, but you know, uh, it's frustrating, you know. I go to a restaurant, they're spitting at my fucking food and throwing dead corpses in the highway and shit. You know, the bitch just starts fucking yelling and shit. I get kicked out of the Mexican restaurant because they want to make sure Patricia got what she wants. And their sister that wasn't a transgender that led me over to her, she just changed her life and became a college student. And she didn't do enough. Fuck you, you know. And it's just days before. And they tell these people to do this. They tell them, and they enjoy it. But you know, I know that this is in honor of Classic Soul. You know, if I ever had a surgery and they have to put me to sleep, they're gonna fucking do the whole Michael Ross or Classic Soul and how he became the, you know, changed person and all this other, and they don't give a fuck about anything. You know, I'm having my pants pulled down, and it's about his DJ career and how he changed his life. Tragedy happens, and then I'm fucked again. But you know, I'm sure that at some point, the fact that she knew that I was resuscitated by Classic Soul, and these are Classic Soul Michael Rossiter fighters, and antagonizing me. And for the white superiors, you know, they get their money, they get their house, and then they want to pay for it. I'm suffering the whole way through. The idea that, you know, they threaten me, you know, it's because they want to make sure Christianity beliefs are in place for their agendas, for their personal spirituality. And um, you know, to the situation of, you know, it doesn't feel very comfortable, you know, going, you know, my mother knowing that I got resuscitated and they're telling her, you know, they get you in the waiting room and say, okay, you know, wait here for a little while, we're gonna have surgery and all this other shit, you know, you start thinking of the reality of yourself. And she has children, many of them. So it's not like she's not gonna think in herself, I was sitting there dying because I took narcotics, and it's Classic Soul, you know, resuscitating me, and this is the shit that he had done. He's still gonna, no matter what, at all costs, he will get his money, he will get his DJ career. And if something bad happens to, it doesn't change anything. I'm an enemy. Nothing I ever did, nothing. It's just, you know, this one's over here threatening me. This one over here is playing himself like Mickey, slapping my mother like he's doing the whole thing again. You know, and I try my best not to think about it, but I have to think positive. It's a smooth surgery. And, you know, finding out all these different things isn't the best of feelings when you start thinking about the reality of what life is. Whether you die behind bars or you die you know, out here, and just homeless. They think about, I'm sure this brings remembrance of me going into a hospital, at my transplant, and I didn't invite my mother, and I should have. And Ken Cooper now is the sheriff that runs my mother and protected my mother and gave her what she needs, and he just shits himself all the way down to the grave, making sure his kids and him end up supremacists. They end up on the top of the food chain off of everything. But, you know, because I know my mother would probably think about those kinds of situations, because I know if it happened to me, it's not like you don't think about it. You think about, oh, this accident happened to me. I walked down the aisles of a hospital and I could have died and all this other stuff. Even if you're thinking positive, it's something that probably slightly grazes everyone's mind. You're in a hospital, So it's difficult, you know, because it does make me feel very, very guilty. And uh, the idea that, they just go about their business. 38 years old and they're fucking who they want to fuck. They got their money, they eat well, and they ain't walking around like shitbag like me. Taking ownership of their dead mother, their dead father, electrocuting me, making me shit on command, people charging me at a restaurant, all these different emotions and these different things. I don't think it's healthy to completely ignore it, because there could be a car accident one day. There could be something else. And, if it's fatal, same thing with me. But, there's that guy right there. He's the one that's fighting for Michael. He resuscitated me. He has red hair like Michael. He brings in the money. He's a superstar. Or he got out of prison or whatever it is. And this one looks like Mickey, so he harnesses the Christianity belief. He's like slapping my mother when Diana did it. And the psychologists tell him to do this. I don't know if they know the actual truth, but they start running around, and it's like carrying a crucifix as a weapon to say what they do. Now, remember I talk about the white light? Okay, well, this one wants to harness Mickey's character. So he'll go sit in there next to the white light saying, oh no, it's Jesus Christ. So all these memories of my mother, I hope my mother doesn't think of it too much, but sure as hell makes me feel guilty. Why, they just enjoy their shit. They think building their houses and all this other shit is bringing me money. It's not bringing me anything. It's bringing their glory for their gay community. It's very intelligent. Very intelligent. These laughters, these laughters. Oh, look what I did. I did this for you and I did that. And they harness that character and they just, oh shit, fuck you too. But thought I'd make a quick video or a video on this, and just kind of a little bit of elaboration of what I'm dealing with, a little bit of my thoughts. I don't know what they're going to train me when I get there. I'm doing inventory and stocking, and I don't even know the details of the accident. Maybe they lied to me about it. Maybe they'll be doing something to train me to alleviate that immediately. Putting boxes on shelves is a form of guilt or a form of harnessing who to point the finger at and whatnot. But because I know if I was going through a surgery and I was going to get put to sleep, it would bring a lot of bad memories, specifically with my bone marrow transplant. Because when you go, I'm sure I didn't get to go to the hospital when my mom had the accident, and all I remember is my aunt told me the scream was so loud that it was something you will never hear anybody that type of scream. And I ain't never heard nobody had no type of scream in their life. Like the only time I've ever had my mother have a really bad scream, like a really, really just like anyone in my family or anyone was when my brother was getting raped, and I had to run and do something and get help, and I risked my life. And I just remember thinking, I already talked about this. I was gonna get ass fucked, and I was so fucking. What happened was happening to him was gonna happen to me, and I had to stop it, and he did. I got lucky. I was scared, and that's the only time I ever heard my mother and seen her scream in a way that was just like total, just like paranoia, pain, like it's a different kind of scream. It's not like, I don't know what it, could explain it, but makes me feel really guilty of all this other shit. They didn't let me get my yin yang. I had a necklace representing light and darkness. I had another I had another yin yang necklace that I had, but the eBay people or Amazon on purpose sent me the wrong one on purpose because they want to confuse it and diffuse it. And really, what I'm doing, really, it's supposed to be the black and then the white to represent, uh, positive and negative. That there's everywhere we go in life, and um, you know, so I don't know what the next couple of weeks is going to be. I don't know. I'm assuming maybe 2 to 3 weeks, probably, surgery. I don't know if they'll be helping her to go to the bathroom. She won't be able to walk, so I'm sure Marco will take care of her. He's a big, strong guy. And, but, you know, the idea that, I didn't bring my mother into a hospital, she'll probably think of that too. But I know that they're training. These are all training methods to harness their own, whatever it is they want for themselves. Whatever it is that they want for themselves. You know, um, it'll put my mother in a more emotional state to reward Classic Soul on how he threw down a badass set and he just became a forgiveness story. He just moves on. He's not all that he, oh shit, just Hector's a bitch. And same thing with like Chris Martinez. When I'm in the car with Susie and he's like, oh yeah, I have a bad relationship with my mom, and all this other shit. Like, they knew very many details, and if they know about the surgery, that also put my mother in an emotional state to help them more. Oh, thank you, oh, classics, oh, tech funk, it's just, oh, Patricia, you know, so all I could do is think positive. Think there's always going to be good and bad. You have bad and you have the good. So, it sure as hell makes me feel guilty. It's just like, there's nothing I could do. Nothing I could do. I'm going to court and the guy's threatening me because I know Ken Cooper is the monument in his statue of give it to my kids. My kids are protected. I eat steak dinner. You eat pig. Don't worry, I built you a house. I got the church. Fuck you. I'm a police officer for 25 fucking years. I dealt with murders and I just saved people's, and he's the one protecting my mother. He's the one that dealt with my dad's death. He's the one that, a lot of the family members did look up to him because he's a sheriff, and all this evaporates me and it congruently moves me out of the picture, and it's just like, fuck you to the end of life. But hopefully things get really good, and um, hopefully hopefully my mother comes out of it not too traumatized and thinking about it too much is what I'm thinking of. So after you start to heal, after the leg surgery, after couple weeks, you start eating your food, you know, vegetables, watching TV, feel a little bit better. And I don't know if they're going to give her pain medication. And that's another thing. She could be placed on narcotics. And I know that was probably one of the other most scariest things that I've seen in my mother is when I saw her. My mother does not do any drugs, no drinking, no smoking, nothing. And I saw her on drugs when she was on narcotics, and it fucking scared the shit out of me because she started crying. She started like and she started going into these emotional states, like, telling me, like, Hector, I've done so much for you and all this, and I knew because I could tell she was on narcotics, and she was really wanting to express her emotions. And I was like, God damn, and her boyfriend and all this other shit, I mean, it was tense because I'm dealing death on one side. I'm dealing, with her boyfriend like running me out of my own house. I'm staying in my room all the time. My mother wants to communicate with me, but I'm nervous because of him. Like, it was really tense because I couldn't. Like, you gotta understand, this guy's about 100 pounds heavier than I am and fully grown. Is a big guy, and I can't really engage with my mother, and it's not even all that great before it happens, and it was such a mix-up of things, you know. But when, obviously, as we know, when there's no more life, there's no more opportunity. That opportunity has completely been severed forever. So, you know,